What happens when the world's biggest pop icon walks into a studio expecting a conversation about music, only to find herself face-to-face with one of television's sharpest legal minds, ready to challenge her on politics, power, and influence? What happens when applause turns into silence, and silence turns into tension so thick you can feel it through the screen? Before we go any further, subscribe to Crosstalk right now, hit that like button, and drop a comment immediately, because what you're about to hear is not just an interview, it's a collision. The lights inside the studio burn just a little brighter than usual. Cameras glide silently across polished floors, red recording lights blinking like warning signals. The audience is buzzing, a low electric hum of excitement mixed with curiosity. Taylor Swift steps onto the set with a familiar smile, the kind that has filled stadiums and broken streaming records. She waves, and the crowd erupts exactly as expected. Cheers, whistles, phones lifted in the air to capture the moment. This is Taylor Swift, after all. Global icon, songwriter, cultural force. She takes her seat, smooths the edge of her blazer, and exhales softly. Another interview. Another conversation. Or so she thinks. Across from her sits Sunny Hostin, posture straight, eyes sharp, expression calm but unreadable. Years in courtrooms and studios have taught her how to wait, how to listen, how to strike when the moment is right. She smiles politely, but there's a weight behind it. This is not going to be light banter. The audience senses it too. Something in the air shifts, like a storm forming under clear skies. The host's introduction rolls smoothly, praising Taylor's latest tour, her chart-topping album, her philanthropic efforts. Taylor nods, thanks them, her voice warm, practiced, confident. She talks about music first, how songwriting still feels like therapy, how performing live keeps her grounded. The audience laughs when she jokes about forgetting lyrics she wrote 10 years ago. For a moment, everything feels safe, controlled, familiar. Then Sunny leans forward slightly. Taylor, she begins, her tone calm but deliberate. You've become more than a musician. You're a political voice now. Some say one of the most powerful in America. The applause stutters. A few claps. Then quiet. Taylor blinks once. Inside her chest, something tightens. She's answered versions of this question before, but something about the way Sunny frames it feels different. Less curious. More surgical. I don't know if I'd say that, Taylor replies carefully. I'm just someone who uses her platform to speak up when it matters to her. Sunny nods, but she doesn't back off. But when you speak, millions listen. When you encourage people to vote a certain way, it can sway outcomes. Do you feel responsible for that kind of influence? A murmur ripples through the audience. Someone whispers, "Oh wow." Cameras zoom in, catching the slight shift in Taylor's expression. The smile is still there, but now it's guarded. I think encouraging people to participate in democracy is a good thing, Taylor says. I don't tell people how to think. I tell them to care. Sunny tilts her head. But caring leads to choices. And choices have consequences. Some critics argue that celebrities, especially those without legal or political training, should stay out of policy debates. There it is. The line. The invisible boundary crossed. Taylor inhales slowly. In her mind, flashes of headlines appear. The backlash. The praise. The endless commentary. She thinks of being younger, told to smile, sing, and stay quiet. She straightens her shoulders. With respect, she says, her voice still calm but firmer now. I don't think you need a law degree to have values. I write songs about people's lives. About their struggles. That's not separate from politics. The audience reacts instantly, half applause, half stunned silence. Sunny's eyes narrow just a fraction. She's listening, but she's not done. Yet when you speak, Sunny counters, you're not just expressing values. You're shaping narratives. Narratives that can affect laws, elections, even court decisions. Isn't there a risk there? Taylor pauses. The room feels smaller. Hotter. She can hear her own heartbeat for a second. There's risk in silence too, she says quietly. That line hits like a match dropped in dry grass. Applause bursts out, louder this time. Some audience members stand. Others exchange uneasy looks. Sunny raises her hand slightly, letting the noise die down. But silence from whom? Sunny asks. From artists? Or from leaders elected to make those decisions? Taylor's jaw tightens. From anyone who knows something is wrong and chooses not to speak because it's not their place. Now the tension is undeniable. This is no longer an interview. It's a debate. Two powerful women, Two different philosophies colliding live on air. Social media managers backstage are already typing furiously, clips being cut in real time. Sunny leans back, crossing her arms. So you believe your moral responsibility outweighs concerns about overreach? Taylor meets her gaze without flinching. I believe people can listen to me and still think for themselves. I trust my fans more than that. The audience erupts again, but this time the reaction is split. Cheers clash with gasps. One woman in the front row shakes her head. Another mouths, she's right. For a brief moment, neither woman speaks. The silence stretches, heavy and loaded. The camera cuts between their faces. Taylor's composed but intense, Sunny's thoughtful but unyielding. Sunny finally breaks it. Then let me ask you this, she says slowly. If your words contribute to division, not unity, would you reconsider how you use your voice? Taylor opens her mouth, then closes it. She looks down for a split second, gathering herself. When she looks back up, her eyes are bright, determined. I'd reconsider if staying quiet ever healed anyone, she says. The audience explodes. The host calls for a break, but the energy doesn't drop. It crackles. You can feel it through the screen. Two worlds have collided, and there's no going back now. And as the cameras pull away, one thing is clear. This conversation is just getting started. The lights dim slightly as the show cuts to commercial, but the tension doesn't fade with the music. It lingers in the studio like smoke after a firecracker, sharp, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. Audience members shift in their seats, whispering to each other, replaying every word they've just heard. Some glance toward Johnny Depp, others toward Whoopi Goldberg, as if expecting one of them to stand up and say this was all a misunderstanding. But neither moves. Johnny stares ahead, jaw set, hands clasped tighter now. Whoopi leans back, arms folded, eyes thoughtful but unyielding. This isn't over. Not even close. The cameras roll back on. The applause cue flashes, but the clapping comes out uneven, hesitant. The hosts smile automatically, trained professionals slipping back into position, but the energy has changed. This isn't a segment anymore. It's a reckoning. Whoopi turns toward Johnny again, her voice steady but layered with something deeper. Johnny, when we went to break, you said you wanted people to listen. So let's listen. But listening goes both ways. Johnny nods once. I agree. She tilts her head slightly. There are people watching right now who believe you were wronged. And there are people watching who believe you were protected by fame. Both groups feel strongly. What do you say to the ones who feel betrayed by the outcome? Johnny exhales through his nose, a slow release, like he's choosing each word with care. I say, I understand why they feel that way, he begins. Because when you only see headlines, when you only hear clips taken out of context, it's easy to feel betrayed. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. But those weren't just headlines, Johnny. Those were testimonies. Evidence. Very real moments for very real people. Johnny's eyes flicker. For a split second, the calm cracks. And so were mine, he says, his voice firmer now. But somehow, mine were treated like fiction. A low murmur ripples through the audience. One of the co-hosts leans forward. Johnny, can I ask, do you think public opinion would have been different if you weren't who you are? He doesn't answer immediately. He looks at her, then at Whoopi, then briefly out toward the audience. Millions of invisible eyes on the other side of the lens. Honestly, he says, I think if I wasn't who I am, I wouldn't have survived it. The words land hard. Whoopi uncrosses her arms. That's an interesting thing to say, she replies, because many would argue the opposite, that an ordinary person would have been destroyed completely. Johnny nods. And that's exactly my point. Fame didn't shield me. It amplified everything. Every accusation. Every insult. Every joke at my expense. The audience reacts audibly now. Some murmurs of agreement, some uneasy shuffling. Whoopi leans forward again. But Johnny, with that amplification comes power. Your voice reaches further. Your pain is heard louder. He meets her gaze. And yet, he says quietly, for years it didn't matter what I said. Silence stretches again, thick and uncomfortable. One co-host tries to lighten the mood, laughing nervously. This is definitely one of our more intense conversations. Whoopi doesn't smile. It needs to be intense, she says, because these conversations are happening in living rooms, online, everywhere. And people are hurting. Johnny's expression softens, just slightly. I know, he says. And that's what breaks my heart the most. He pauses, then continues, voice trembling just a fraction. There were days I didn't think I'd ever be able to sit here. Days I thought my kids would only ever know me through headlines. A woman in the audience wipes her eyes. Whoopi watches him carefully. That sounds painful, she acknowledges. But pain doesn't cancel accountability. Johnny nods again, slower this time. No, it doesn't. And I've never asked it to. He straightens in his seat. What I've asked for is fairness. To be judged on facts, not narratives. Whoopi responds immediately. And what about the narrative that says powerful men rewrite history? Johnny's jaw tightens. Then judge me, he says. But judge me honestly. The studio feels like it's holding its breath. Even the co-hosts are silent now. Whoopi studies him for a long moment. Do you think, she asks, that there's anything you could have done differently? That question hits differently. Johnny looks down, eyes glistening under the lights. For the first time, there's no quick answer. No prepared line. Yes, he finally says. I could have spoken sooner. I could have defended myself louder. But I was tired. I was broken. And I believed the truth would eventually speak for itself. He looks back up. I learned the hard way that truth needs help sometimes. The audience applauds softly, tentatively, as if unsure whether it's appropriate. Whoopi nods slowly. That's honest, she says. And honesty matters. Then, just as the tension seems to ease, she adds, but honesty also means acknowledging the damage done beyond yourself. Johnny's eyes harden again. I do, he says. Every single day. The camera cuts between them. Two strong personalities, neither backing down, neither fully yielding. This isn't a winner and loser moment. It's something Messier. Something real. A producer's voice echoes faintly from off-camera, signaling time. The co-host glances nervously at the clock. We're running long, she says. But clearly, this conversation isn't finished. Johnny lets out a short, humorless laugh. It never is, he says. Whoopi looks straight into the camera. When we come back, she says, we're going to talk about responsibility, culture, and what accountability really looks like in the public eye. The audience reacts, some applause, some gasps. Johnny leans back, eyes distant again, as the screen fades to black. Whatever calm existed before is gone. And everyone knows the next part won't just be intense. It will be explosive. The screen fades back in, and the applause sign lights up again, but this time the clapping is louder, sharper, edged with nerves. People aren't applauding out of habit anymore. They're bracing themselves. Johnny Depp sits differently now, shoulders squared, like someone who's accepted that retreat is no longer an option. Whoopi Goldberg adjusts her glasses, her face calm but serious, the expression of someone about to step into deep water without knowing how cold it will be. Whoopi speaks first. We said before the break that we were going to talk about responsibility and culture, she says. Because this isn't just about you, Johnny. It's about what your story represents. Johnny nods slowly. I understand that, he says. I never wanted it to become a symbol. But it did. And symbols, Whoopi replies, carry consequences. The audience is silent again. Not even a cough this time. Whoopi continues, her voice measured but firm. There are people who feel that your public redemption, whether you see it that way or not, sent a message. A message that power, persistence, and money can outlast accusations. Johnny leans forward, elbows on his knees. That wasn't a redemption tour, he says. That was survival. But perception matters, Whoopi counters. Especially in a culture that already struggles to believe victims. Johnny's eyes flash. And what about a culture that struggles to believe men can be victims too? A sharp reaction ripples through the audience, some nodding, some stiffening. Whoopi doesn't flinch. Both can be true, she says. And that's where it gets complicated. One of the co-hosts finally jumps in, voice careful. Johnny, do you feel like this conversation has ever allowed room for nuance? He lets out a breath that almost sounds like a laugh. No, he says. It's always been binary. Hero or villain. Monster or martyr. There was never space for human. The word human hangs there fragile. Whoopi softens slightly. Being human also means acknowledging harm, she says. Even unintended harm. Johnny straightens. I acknowledge that my silence hurt people. That my choices hurt people. But I won't accept harm I didn't commit. The co-host shifts in her seat. Do you think, she asks, that public trials, literal or social, are the right way to handle these situations? Johnny looks at her, eyes tired now. No, he says quietly. I think they destroy everyone involved. Whoopi nods. And yet here we are, she says, talking about it on television. A few uneasy laughs break out, quickly fading. Whoopi turns back to Johnny. Let me ask you something directly, she says. Do you think the movement for accountability went too far? Johnny hesitates. This time, the pause feels heavier than any argument. I think he begins slowly, that movements are born from pain. And pain doesn't always know when to stop swinging. A collective inhale from the audience. But, he adds quickly, that doesn't mean the movement was wrong. It means it needs honesty. Balance. Whoopi studies him. And do you believe balance exists right now? Johnny shakes his head. I think we're still learning how to hold it. The studio feels tense, but something has shifted. The confrontation has turned inward. Less accusation. More reckoning. A woman in the audience raises her hand. The host hesitates, then nods. A microphone is passed. I'm a survivor, the woman says, voice shaking but strong. And I watched your trial. And I felt confused. Because I believed you sometimes. And other times, I felt like I was betraying myself. The room freezes. Johnny looks at her, eyes wide, expression raw. I'm sorry, he says immediately. That my story put you in that position. She nods, tears in her eyes. I just want to know, do you understand why this is bigger than you? Johnny swallows hard. Yes, he says. I do. And that's why this hurts so much. Whoopi watches this exchange, her face unreadable but intent. This, she says softly, is what we're talking about. Johnny turns back to Whoopi. I never wanted to be anyone's test case, he says. I just wanted my life back. And some people, Whoopi replies, will say others never get that chance. Johnny nods. That's true, he says. And it's tragic. The co-host glances at the clock again, panic creeping into her eyes. We're almost out of time. Whoopi raises a hand. Just one more question, she says. She looks at Johnny, really looks at him. Do you think, she asks, that history will be kind to you? Johnny leans back, staring up at the studio lights. I don't know, he admits. History isn't kind. It's just loud. He looks back at her. All I can hope is that someday, the noise fades enough for the truth to be heard. The audience applauds, not explosively, but deeply. A long, rolling applause filled with conflicted emotion. Whoopi nods once. That's something we can agree on, she says. The camera pulls back slightly, capturing the entire panel, the audience, the tension still humming in the air. This wasn't closure. It was exposure. And everyone watching can feel it. As the show moves toward its final moments, the confrontation hasn't ended. It's transformed. What comes next won't just live in this studio. It's already spilling outward into phones, timelines, arguments, and hearts everywhere. The show ends, but the moment doesn't. As the final applause fades and the cameras cut, the studio remains frozen in a strange half-life, like a place where something historic just happened, but no one knows how to move on from it. Audience members stand slowly, some shaking their heads, others wiping their eyes, a few already pulling out phones to type messages that feel urgent, almost necessary. Johnny Depp stays seated for a beat longer than everyone else, staring at the floor, as if grounding himself before stepping back into a world that never really lets him rest. Whoopi Goldberg exhales deeply, removing her glasses, the weight of the conversation settling on her shoulders. A producer rushes in, whispering urgently words like trending, clips, and already blowing up, spilling into the air. The co-hosts exchange looks. This wasn't just another episode. This was a fault line. Johnny finally stands, offering a polite nod to the panel. Some of the audience applauds again, softly, spontaneously. It's not approval. It's acknowledgement. He pauses near Whoopi, and for a brief moment, it seems like neither knows what to say. Then she speaks quietly off mic. That wasn't easy, she says. No, Johnny replies. But it was real. She nods once. No hug. No grand gesture. Just mutual recognition. Two people who walked into fire and came out singed, but standing. Backstage, the energy is electric and chaotic. Staff members talk over each other, phones buzzing nonstop. Clips of the exchange are already circulating online. Johnny's line about truth needing help, Whoopi's insistence on accountability, the survivor's voice from the audience. Each moment is being sliced, captioned, judged within seconds. By the time Johnny steps into his car, the internet has already chosen sides. On one corner of social media, hashtags trend in his favor. Supporters call him brave, honest, finally heard. They praise his composure, his vulnerability, his refusal to be boxed into a narrative. On the other side, critics are just as loud, accusing him of deflection, of centering himself, of benefiting once again from a platform that amplifies his voice over others. Think pieces begin to appear almost instantly, their titles sharp and decisive, as if certainty is a currency that must be spent quickly before attention moves on. Whoopi, meanwhile, faces her own storm. Some praise her for asking the hard questions, for refusing to let the conversation slide into sympathy alone. Others accuse her of being too confrontational, too dismissive, too representative of a system that people no longer trust. Old clips of her past comments resurface, reframed, reinterpreted, weaponized. The cycle is familiar, relentless. By nightfall, the episode of The View has been watched, clipped, and debated by millions. Living rooms turn into argument arenas. Comment sections fill with long personal stories, short angry jabs, broken sentences typed through tears. Survivors speak. Defenders respond. People who never cared before suddenly have strong opinions. The conversation sprawls beyond Johnny Depp and Whoopi Goldberg, beyond Hollywood, beyond one show. It becomes about belief, about power, about who gets to be heard, and at what cost. Johnny releases no statement that night. No tweet. No clarification. Just silence. Some interpret it as dignity. Others as strategy. Whoopi posts a short message hours later. Hard conversations matter. Even when they're uncomfortable. Nothing more. Media outlets call it one of the most intense daytime television moments in years. Analysts dissect body language, tone, pauses. Experts argue on panels about whether the exchange moved the conversation forward or deepened the divide. But beneath all the analysis, something simpler hums. People felt something. And in a media landscape numb from constant noise, feeling something is rare and dangerous. Days later, the clip of the audience member speaking goes viral. Her words are quoted in articles, stitched into videos, shared with captions like, "This is why it's complicated." Johnny's response to her is replayed endlessly, his voice softer there than anywhere else in the interview. For some, that moment becomes the heart of the confrontation. Not Johnny versus Whoopi, but humanity versus certainty. And that's the uncomfortable truth left behind in the studio that day. There was no winner, no knockout line, no clean resolution. Just people carrying pain, speaking from wounds that don't heal on schedule. Johnny returns to work eventually, but the echo of that conversation follows him. Whoopi continues hosting, asking questions, bracing for backlash, because that's the job she chose. And the audience, those in the studio and those watching from home, carry their own interpretations forward, shaped by their experiences, their losses, their hopes. That's the aftermath no headline can fully capture. Now the question shifts to you. What did you see in that moment? Strength? Deflection? Honesty? Conflict? Did Johnny finally feel heard, or did the platform tilt the scales again? Was Whoopi holding him accountable, or reinforcing a divide that keeps everyone locked in opposition? This is where the story leaves the studio and enters your hands. Share your thoughts in the comments, because your perspective matters in conversations like this. If this story pulled you in, challenged you, or made you feel the weight of the moment, make sure to subscribe to Crosstalk for more explosive, emotional, and cinematic stories that don't shy away from the hard conversations. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and stay with us, because the moments that shake culture rarely come with easy answers, and we're here to explore them together.